welcome to Is It Paranormal 101, Part 1. In this video, we will talk about some of the more common misidentifications regarding paranormal evidence, specifically video, photographic, and audio evidence. I'll be your host, History of Mankind's Future. I am a historian by education. I am a tourism and hospitality consultant by profession, and I'm also a hobbyist geographer. So I use all of these things that I do to kind of hone my skill as a paranormal investigator and make it interesting for the public when I present videos like this. That's part of my goal with this channel. Is I want to show you unique things and forgotten things that aren't paranormal, and I also want to show you strange and unexplained and phenomenon associated with locations and things in the region that I'm from, and then beyond. Someday I want to get out there and explore. Also historical phenomenon as well. But this video today specifically is going to be about evidence that people come across. A lot of times, you'll get a photograph and you'll think it's paranormal. You'll see something on there, and a lot of the time it's not. It's completely explainable. And it's really easy with video and photographs and audio evidence to get a hit that you think is paranormal, but it's actually just, a speck of dust or a creaky floorboard or something like that. So today we're going to kind of go over a little bit of that and give you some pointers on what to look for. And so let's get started. Many of the people that I know will get really excited, and they'll know I do paranormal investigation, and they'll want to show me their picture with orbs in them. And the simple fact of the matter is, orbs 99.5% of the time are completely explainable. Now, there is that 0.5% of the time where you do get something anomalous, where you have something that could be paranormal activity. When I am considering that, I'm usually looking for something with an independent light source that you can tell on the photograph or on the video that the orb has an independent light source. And I'm also looking for erratic movement of this object. It's not going to float down. It's not even necessarily going to streak across the room. It's going to zigzag. It's going to move up and down. It's going to make flips and spin and move insanely fast back and forth for me to really pay attention to it, because most of the time these objects are dust or humidity or bugs or some other object floating around in the air or falling from the ceiling because the building's old or you're moving around is disrupting it. Orbs, most of the time, by and large, are not paranormal. Another common thing you'll run into with both video and photographic evidence are lens artifacts. Lens artifacts are things that are either on the lens or distortions caused by light and the way the lens receives the light. These can look like orbs sometimes. They can look like streaks. They can look like different colors. You usually know them when you see them, and often they're misidentified as being some kind of phenomenon, but they're not. Recently, when I was doing an investigation in February, I had a lens artifact, which I believe now was a lens artifact, in the basement of the building I was investigating. There was an object that streaked across the screen from right to left in front of me on the video I was reviewing, and I went back and saw it. I'm like, oh, what is this? This is weird. And I talked to another person that I consult about paranormal inquiries, and they said, I think it's a lens artifact. And I said, maybe, I don't know. I still think it might be paranormal. So I asked some other groups that I knew, and they a few different ones, a few different members of paranormal groups here in eastern Nebraska where I investigate, and they also thought it was a lens artifact. So I kind of concur. I think after looking at it a couple times, I think it is most likely a lens artifact. It's easy to come across something you think is odd or a phenomenon, and it turns out not to be. So in this case, that's what happened, and it's a really good example of a lens artifact. And one of the other things we run into a lot with photographic and video evidence are tricks of the eye or optical illusions. You'll see something that looks like something that it just isn't. Um, you'll see what appears to be the shadow of a person, but it's just, a lamp or a piece of furniture or some other object casting that shadow, and it's not really paranormal. Or you'll see what looks vaguely like a face, or any number of things can be an optical illusion. Light, a lot of times, this goes along with lens artifacts, will reflect in specific ways. The sun can reflect if you're outside in the daylight. The moon can reflect if you're outside at night. And they will come across as, they look like phenomenon on your video or on your photograph. So you have to kind of scrutinize these carefully. So here is an example of some video taken outside. And as you can see, I have filmed the sun directly with the lens, and you can see streaking, and you can see some orbs caused by the sun. This is a good example of an environmental factor like the sun creating a lens artifacts, and some orbs. So this was taken outside at a park, and it was unintentional, and I knew it wasn't paranormal when I saw it, but again, this is a good example right here. One of the more common optical illusions or tricks of the eye that I have noticed are things that look like faces in, say, orbs, or in reflections, or in windows sometimes. Now, you got to be careful. Sometimes these are paranormal in nature, and you really got to scrutinize and try to debunk your photo to see if something else is causing the anomaly you see on your film. A lot of times, though, because your mind is inherently trained to see the human face and the human figure, that's what your brain's telling you. This has got to be a person. This is a face. It's paranormal. A lot of times, context matters in these situations. If you're getting hits on your equipment, if you're using like an EMF detector or a K2, or you have other audio that is indicating you might have EVP at these times, and you see a face that looks well defined or maybe even familiar to the property owner, that's something significant. Otherwise, if you're just seeing what loosely looks like a distorted face or looks like a person, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's paranormal. A lot of times when you do review evidence, you'll have a lot of inconclusive hits that you don't know whether they're paranormal or not. Like, for instance, previously I talked about my lens flare. Like, I do believe that is most likely a lens flare. There is an outside possibility that I'll still entertain that maybe it's paranormal. Most likely, though, it's a lens flare. Same thing with any evidence that you come across, especially with those of the optical illusion sort. Other types of things that happen on your video, you'll see something that you forgot about, something that was unnoticed, like a person in your photo. Someone who was at a location, peeking in the window, or you're in a public place and there was someone working that you didn't know was there, or a number of things like that, or you have a light that was on that you think is a independent light source, and it's an orb, or it's a unexplainable light, or anything like this. Things you just simply forgot were part of your environment. That's why it's very important to observe your environment, do a walkthrough of the place you're investigating before you start. And if you're a homeowner and you're doing your own investigation, know what's going on in your home and what's where. And before you start and trying to get video evidence, be sure that the object in the room is what you think it is, to try to debunk and to try to rule out anything logical when trying to find paranormal evidence. Um, Other things you have to account for, and these kind of go together again with some of the lens artifacts, or natural occurrences. Light, a lot of times, will act in a funny way, be it artificial or sunlight or moonlight. Those are natural occurrences that can cause things that we think are anomalous or that are paranormal in nature, but they're really not. Um, the environment around you sometimes can do it as well. Uh, Rain, snow, wind, these things can cause sound, these things can cause movement, and they can affect movement inside of buildings as well, especially like the wind. Uh, Lightning can cause light anomalies. I mean, there's a various number of weather and physical things that can cause what appear to be hits in the paranormal, both video and photographic. So take into account those kind of possibilities when you're reviewing evidence. So, video and photographs are some of the most common pieces of paranormal evidence when there is paranormal research going on, either by investigators or by the general public, people just doing a home investigation. The other real common piece of evidence that people will present as paranormal is audio evidence. And you can take audio evidence with a digital audio recorder or an old tape recorder or even on your phone. There's a lot of ways you can do it, a lot of ways people do it. And audio evidence is just as easily misinterpreted, if not easier, than photographic evidence and video evidence. So, one of the most common ways to get a miss or a false positive on audio evidence is self-contamination. And self-contamination can happen in several different ways. One way is just simply by breathing. Sometimes your microphone can be too close to your face, or you're breathing especially loud. I breathe really loud, and I tend to contaminate a lot of the audio I take, especially even if I'm holding the audio recorder down by my side, I'll contaminate the audio. So breathing, whispering to someone else is a real common way to get a false positive. You think you whispered to yourself, or you didn't know you whispered to somebody else, and the person reviewing it doesn't know that, and they think you have a hit. Or if you review it yourself and you forgot you said it, you think you had a hit yourself, and it's not paranormal, it's you. And also other people whispering or noises that are explainable. Those fall in the realm of general contamination. So general contamination can be, a squeaky floorboard, can be a car driving by outside. It could be someone talking in another room if there are other investigators with you. It can be someone talking outside, walking by, depending on where you're at. It can be animals outside. It can be your house settling or the building you're in settling. It can be the building that you're in making a noise you don't know about. There are a ton of ways that you can get general contamination on audio. And then, it's funny also, people will pass gas, and that's self-contamination, and then they won't say anything because they're embarrassed, and they're investigating something like in a paranormal investigation setting, and they don't say, oh, that was me, because they're embarrassed. Well, you get that, and sometimes people there was even a Saturday Night Live skit about it years ago, getting an EVP when they were passing gas. It was a spoof on not one of the paranormal shows at the time. I think they were British, but anyway, it's neither here nor there. There are a ton of ways that you can either self-contaminate or get general contamination on audio. And I'm going to give you some examples here of some EVP clips that I took from Squirrel Cage Jail. One is going to be here. I took audio and video in a room at the Squirrel Cage Jail, which is a haunted location in Council Bluffs, Iowa.
Give us a sign by moving the rods or moving the dolls on the rocking chair. us a sign. Give us a sign. Alright, that's me. Reflection.
Well, come to find out, it was a squeaky cabinet door from that room that I had mistakenly not marked. Verbally is when you say, hey, this happened here, a verbal mark, or, mark the time. There's several ways to do it, but the most common, easy way to do it is say, hey, I made this noise. And I thought about it when it happened, and I didn't do it. And lo and behold, we thought we had this amazing EVP hit. Then there are some other clips of EVPs that we took. Some of them are inconclusive. There are 3 that are inconclusive that could be paranormal in nature, and there's one that we debunked. Base reading of 56 degrees, 56.8. Oh, nothing. 56.8. Oh, nothing. If you were here during the 1980s, can you make the EMF detector flash? Okay. Okay.
I just home for my family. I get things off the top shelf. I'm home.
I assume that this toilet.
I'm home.
I assume that this toilet.
But so you got to be real careful when listening to audio. Try to debunk. Try to know who's in the room. Try to know if you're self-contaminating with noises you make. But those are some of the more common ways to get false positives with audio evidence. And to be honest, that's about it. This was going to sum up part 1 of this video. We will go over, in part 2, we're going to go over some of the equipment that can get false positives when you're doing a group paranormal investigation, or if you happen to have paranormal equipment and you're doing one in your home, like a K2 or, a spirit box or something like that. We'll go over those in the next video, and also we're really going to get into the metaphysical in the next episode, in the next segment. It will be about psychics and mediums, and about using tools, metaphysical tools like dowsing rods and dowsing with pendulums and crystals. It's going to be that sort of thing. We're going to critique those and kind of talk about why you get false positives and the issues you run into with those things. So for now, I thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this informative, and I hope you look forward to the next episode. All right, bye-bye.